inconsistency from Firouzja. He barely ever draws games. He tried to be a bit too solid in the previous one, went down to defeat, but now with white, he has to go back to original strategy of attacking Magnus, playing on the front foot. No more playing for the draw, even with white. That won't necessarily work out. We see the Sicilian defense. Firouzja, will he go for the open Sicilian? It's back to basics, back to his stomping ground, his home comforts of playing really fierce attacking chess. And wow, Magnus is really raising the red rag to the bull here. The Sicilian dragon. It's going to be the year of the dragon, I have to admit, but this is a risky choice from Black.
It's a choice that is dictated by the score of the match. Magnus Carlsen down by a point. A draw is equivalent to a loss for the second game in a row. And look at this, h5 taking control of his g4 square. How many Sicilians have we seen where white throws all the pawns up the board and creates an attack? Magnus said no attack for you, but in doing so, it's less likely that he safely castles on over to the king side. The black king may have to stay in the center for a while, David.
Yeah, the black king, it's pretty much stranded. No way castle kingside after pushing pawns, weakening your own kingside flank. And Magnus trading off knights. It feels like he's in kind of known territory here. I must say, fresh, brand new position for me. But look at this, unorthodox moves, hitting the white queen this early. The dragon bishop, normally a fianchetto bishop, landing on the g7 square. Not this time, hitting the white queen, preventing queenside castles, one of white's main ideas in this opening. And Magnus surprisingly trades off. He's maybe going to turn this into a more strategic battle after the wild promise of the opening. The black rook is going to enter the semi-open c file. There we go, rook to c8, hitting the bishop. The black queen's going to come out via a5. I must say, opening success objectively, Robin. I think black has, if not equalized, then at least is not going to be hit by a direct attack as we're used to in the Sicilian dragon. But is it going to be sufficient? Do you think there's enough imbalance here to hope to win long term?
It looks quite level at the moment, and I was about to say that Magnus likely going for the queen trade. They say in the Sicilian, the skeleton of the position is often favorable for black. You have traded a bishop's pawn, the c pawn, for a central pawn, this what was on d4. And so Magnus Carlsen, he just flexed his endgame muscles in the third game of the match. Why not try for it in game 4? I think so many players, David, they would think, oh, queen's off the board, it's just a draw. Not when Magnus Carlsen is playing. And actually, I think as we look across the board, there are enough imbalances in this. It's not symmetrical pawn structure that will give black some
stay tied down too much longer on the passive f1 square. Now he's at least seeking counterplay. Again, a tip for everyone at home: don't sit there, don't suffer, don't let your opponent just slowly keep improving. Sooner or later, you have to kind of step forward. You have to ask questions, activate your pieces. Now, Magnus, what do you feel he's going to do? Trade off pawns, bypass this pawn to g4. You don't want your pawns on light squares, but maybe at least it keeps more pawns away from it.
I think it's also tempting to look at bishop d5, trying to put pressure on a pin piece, but white has the very simple move b3. So just to point out that you're not going to win material there. To answer your question directly, I would be tempted to capture. I just think that you may get some imbalances there, that if you play g4, maybe white pushes to f5, and I don't know if black can connect the pawns in time to keep them all safe and sound. It's not an easy choice, that's why Magnus is spending time. And David, I have to ask you, as we look at the clock, how much of a role do you think it will play?
I think it's going to play a massive role. Actually, it's not obvious, but the top players, I feel, they play much quicker in positions where it's very forcing. Even if it's tactical and a bit crazy, they make good decisions because their calculation is so fast. But when it's strategic decisions, when there's no obvious move, there's nothing forced, you have 6 or 7 kind of very sensible options on every single turn, that's where the time is burnt. That's where actually you need to invest some time. You need to have it saved up in the bank for later. I mean, look at this now. Black's bishop on a beautiful outpost. If the black rook gets to h1, white's pawn chain just collapses. So there's a clear path, a clear plan for Magnus. In terms of the clock, 2 minutes now for Firouzja. No clear plan for him. And he's just trying to hold things together. A bishop trade here, Robert, will not save white necessarily.
No, because the plan is this. I know that looks ridiculous because of rook moving on a diagonal, but if this rook can sit on g2, white will not be able to take it, and that may freeze Alireza's pieces in place. David, does this remind you of the Champions Chess Tour finals from a season ago when I think Magnus was playing against Wesley So? He had a very similar structure. In fact, he had a winning position in that game. So this pawn structure here, with that nasty pawn on h3, it can create a wedge and it can hurt your opponent, as Magnus has proven over the years.
Yeah, I remember growing up watching these rapid games where Kasparov in, I think, 1994 kept in the Sicilian idol, getting a pawn to h3 and checkmating the opponent. Now, modern kind of knowledge, modern wisdom shows that pawns on that square in endgames are also a huge trump up the sleeve for later. Has Magnus slipped up the bishop to e2?
Yes, wow. Look at his face. Look at that reaction, David. He did not see the retreating move coming.
Oh my gosh, I didn't see it coming. I must admit, I thought Black's plan, it was so straightforward, so simple. He should have got his king out of the firing line, off the d-file pin. And, wow! Magnus agreed to draw.
So he agreed to lose the match. I mean, you can lose this game. It's the same as the draw. David, are you surprised that he wouldn't even fight? I know white objectively